Alright guys, Mark here before today's episode, just to let you know that tickets for myself and Stuart's Edinburgh Fringe Festival shows are on sale now. We'll be back at the Fringe, both in Monkey Barrow once again. It's always great to see the podcast listeners and watchers, of course, at the shows. So we'll hopefully see you there, and tickets are on sale now. And as ever, of course, you can sign up to our Patreon for as little as £3 a month and get access to an extra episode every 2 weeks, as well as bonus content, including from all our previous live shows, and first dibs on tickets for upcoming live events and shows as well. Aside from all that, guys, we hope you enjoy today's episode. Welcome to the Some Laugh podcast.
It could be like, oh, that was some laugh, or there was just some laughs.
Some laughs.
Well, no promising all laugh.
No, there's going to be some.
It's some laugh.
I'll tell you about streaming on Channel 4.
Yes.
We talk about that all the services are called Channel 4.
Right.
So the digital platform's called Channel 4, the channel's called Channel 4, and it's the context in which you direct people to watch the thing which dictates how they watch it. So if I say stream on Channel 4, you know that you're going to watch that online. If you say watch on Channel 4, you know that you're going to watch it on TV.
It's clever.
How's that for commissioner talk?
That's clever.
Is it clever?
Through the looking glass.
I didn't notice it until you've said it, but
It's a
that's
subtle. If you look at the adverts, so if you see in a newspaper an advert for a sitcom, drama, whatever, yeah, the word stream will be emboldened or coloured or highlighted in a different way to the rest. So it's a sort of, it's not subconscious, but
psychological.
Can you stream on Channel 4 Plus One?
well, how would that work? Well, you actually might be
live,
able to
surely,
stream
on the-
Channel 4
on the
Plus
website.
1 live. Maybe.
Aye.
I don't know the answer. It sounds silly. Maybe. I don't know.
Should upload this episode to YouTube an hour later as well. Do 2 versions.
Well, I'm going to get called into someone's office for this, for not knowing. Streaming is all plus one or plus whatever hour past the original transmission that you want to watch it.
Yeah.
This is just going to be your thumbnail and then an episode of The Big Bang Theory on the show.
There's an idea, though. We could get, with AI advances, we probably could, it could be like Channel 4 plus 4050, like tailored to you. I don't know what marketing advantage that would have.
No.
Can I also say, it's a big organisation. I'm not involved in these decisions, thank God.
Just a pun.
Well, what kind of decisions are you involved in then, Joe, as a commissioner for Channel 4?
Comedy.
It's unique that we've got a
Comedy.
guest from your side of the fence.
Yeah.
on the pod.
I thought coming on this was like, I think I said to you before, it's like when Obama went on the Mark Maron podcast.
Well, we did have a sniper on the roof, but they're just
Classic
usually
Glasgow. For anyone watching, listening, say that though I'm English, I know Scotland.
Yeah.
So
Well, because
I can say it.
I think the first time I ever seen you was at the Hullait bar, Joe, in
Would
Glasgow.
have been, yeah.
And we used
What
to go
year
and do
was that?
open spots there, probably about 2012, I would say.
Yeah, I think about then.
Were you still doing stand-up at that point?
I stopped in 2012.
You
So
did?
not long after that.
Yeah.
I started in the end of 2012, so I've just missed you.
You've just missed. But I might have inspired you. Pass
Yeah.
the baton.
Yeah, subconsciously.
Well, because it's quite a journey you've been on. Because it was funny, like thinking like I just doing open spots now at the Hullait bar. You end up being creator of Scott Squad. Now you're a commissioner in one of the major channels in the country. How did you get to this point? Did you see yourself going in this direction?
Well, I'll tell you why I stopped doing stand-up was I only wanted, obviously love stand-up, love comedy, but for me, everything was in pursuit of making sitcoms, making television. And then around that time was where the Scott Squad got made, the pilot got shot in 2011, broadcast in 2012, and then there's kind of a year of BBC deciding whether they were going to make it as a series. But once Scott Squad had gone out as a pilot and it had gone quite well, I thought, well, I'm in the world I want to be in and making television, and I shouldn't do stand-up because I'm not that focused on it. I think I was all right. I don't think I was like on a route to amazing, being like a really good enough stand-up that you need to be in order to sustain a career. So I just decided I wouldn't, if my heart wasn't in, I wouldn't do it. So I stopped. So that's a bit of context. But I came up to Scotland in 2010. When I graduated, I went on the Channel 4 production training scheme. So I'm entry-level Channel 4 person, now working in commission, which is quite rare, I think. just there's no humble brag to that. It's just a big brag. I realise as the words are leaving my mouth, I'm really have. What a journey I've made. But I did. So I did that. I worked at the comedy unit. They were one of the placements for the Channel 4 production trainee scheme. 12 months. I think literally the first thing I ever pitched in an internal meeting was Scott Squad, and they were like, "Oh, that's a good idea."
Aye.
Worked it up, did a load of development on it. BBC liked it, commissioned it as a pilot, made it, and that's it. And that's like one of actually the only few things where that has happened so well. Pitched like 1,000 things in my lifetime, and only like 3 have got made. Wow. That was one of them.
And that was one of the first ones.
Literally the first. You tell people like you're going to have to do this a million times, and eventually it might work. And it kind of worked in reverse for me. It was like diminishing returns. The first thing was really big, and everything else was like.
Did you expect it to be a total piece of piss after that first one? Like,
yeah,
just everything you touched.
I was like, this should be a great career. I'm gonna pilot every year, but then the BBC took. We first discussed and we did the development and we did a taster in 2010, and then the series 1 didn't shoot until February 2014. So like 3.5, nearly 4 years of that like sort of development hell.
Yeah.
And that's a show that went quite well and was a successful run into a series, but it just takes a really long time. So I did that, and then once we'd made the first series, I was like, I think I'm going to go back to. So I was living up here. And I thought, a series is going to go out and we're just going to see now what happens. I'll go back to London. And I went to work on a show called Hoff the Record with David Hasselhoff.
Yeah, tell us about Hoff.
For UK TV. It was on Dave. And they had a whole rebrand exercise because it was David Hasselhoff and Dave. They had like posters everywhere on the Underground that were rebranding the series as David. Rebranding the channel as David. There's like a lot of like mad marketing around this series, but I went. The company they're called Me and You Productions, and they made that. I had a meeting with them and they showed me a taster and they had a thing that was like a semi-improvised mockumentary the way Scott Squad was. So I think they were interested in my expertise there. Mm-hmm. So I went to work for them as a development assistant producer, just day to day, like meeting comedians and just trying to get projects off the ground, and then also as a storyliner on Off the Record. For 2 series. It only ran for 2 series.
What's he like, Joe?
Mad.
Do you think we could get him on
Absolutely
it?
mad.
I seen him doing
chance.
karaoke in karaoke. He was singing in the campus once.
Wow.
What?
It's very Hoff.
It was one of those like, "Hey, come to campus tonight." And
that was
see
the night the
David
Berlin
Hasselhoff.
Wall came down, wasn't it?
Aye, that's right. Yeah.
Did a light just go out?
Aye, that's
Is
keeps
that
happening
normal?
when he
That's-
fix it.
It's the current storyline in the podcast. Now, that fucking line.
He is strange, but he's very nice.
Mm-hmm.
He was interested. Like, I mean, he had good manners, and he wasn't a dick, and he was friendly. And there was a couple of times we were doing the rehearsals for one of the series, and they needed to have a production meeting in the middle of the day, and he needed to eat. And it was agreed, I think almost without saying, that you couldn't just send David Hasselhoff out onto the streets of London to eat on his own. And I was like the most junior responsible person in that situation. So they're like, you take him to lunch 2 days in a row. So the first one, we went to some touristy Italian restaurant by British Museum. Me and him like crammed in this tiny place. And it was really funny. The waitress came up after the meal and went, "Sorry, can I just say you look like David Hasselhoff?" And I was like, "It is literally David. There's no way that's not David Hasselhoff."
No one looks like it.
I know. And then I remember the second day we went for lunch, he said, it was a really weird thing. What did he say to me? He said, after like loads of conversation, he said, "You remind me of my daughter." And then no pause between that and the next bit of the sentence, which is, "She's a plus size model."
Fucking hell.
I don't think he was calling me bigger. I don't know what he was saying. I
He
just
said
think
that to
was
you?
Yeah, but I think that was he was just giving me context.
Just freewheeling.
He decided he's going to talk about his daughter, but he should have. I don't know. It was
Thought
a
of
really
better
odd,
segue. Yeah.
an odd bit of information to give. So that was my experience with the Hoff.
What did you talk about over lunch?
That's what I was wondering.
It was me writing down anecdotes for podcasts years later. No, it was really like a weird existential moment he was having. He said, "I sometimes forget I'm David Hasselhoff."
Just about the waitresses there to remind them.
Yeah, no, he was like, it was weird. It was like I was an actor, and then I went on Baywatch, and it was massive, and now I'm just, like I guess that thing of me saying obviously it's David Hasselhoff. He's such an inescapable. You can't blend in, can you? Everywhere someone famous like that goes, they're that person.
Aye.
There's no. He's also like 7 foot tall. And it doesn't help that half the time I saw him, he was wearing a fucking Baywatch jacket. Actually, there's another
guy with a Baywatch jacket looks a lot like David Hasselhoff.
And there was another. Oh, this is what happened. For some reason, I ended up with one of the execs in Pamplona in Spain, where they do the bull run. Going to visit David Hasselhoff. He was doing this like European tour where him and a load of retro nostalgia type acts go around and perform in the summer in like big European cities. And so 2 things about this. The first is that it was somehow the guy that was putting the tour together owned a load of, I think it was Formula 2 racetracks. So this is where they happened whilst the racing was going on. And number 2, the lineup included the Venga Boys.
Brilliant.
Good lineup.
And we went, I remember he had his own like green room, and we went in, had a chat with him, and then he had a sign on the door. It was obviously to remind himself that he had to do something, and it said, "Introduce Joe to the Venga Boys." He'd written out.
Did you meet the Venga Boys?
No, he never did it. That was the thing. He put it on a sign, and then we never met the Venga Boys. I did meet Sam Fox. I think she's a 80s page 3 model.
Yeah, I only know if she gets referenced in an Alan Partridge book.
Yeah, she was there. Hadaway, What Is Love? Baby Don't Hurt Me, that guy.
Oh, yeah.
We shared
What a crazy show this is.
I know. I sat in the middle seat between David Hasselhoff and Hadaway for like an hour from the city centre to this racetrack in the middle of nowhere. And the Hoff and Hadaway I don't think they knew each other, but they were getting on really well, and I was just sort of in the middle of it, and the conversation was wild.
Third wheeling.
Hadaway said something about getting paid. He got paid by some dictator to go and perform. And he's like, 50 grand, what are you going to do? Of course you're going to do it.
50 grand?
Doesn't seem like that much.
And can I just say, in case this is libelous, I've just plucked that figure from my arse. I cannot remember what amount it was, but it was enough that Hadaway was like, yeah, I'll go and do it.
Yeah.
I'll go and do it, yeah.
Would you do that?
Depends who it is, and depends
Which
what my song
dictator?
is and how much money.
Yeah. What kind of dictator?
Kim Jong-un
Absolutely not. I just worry that they would keep me.
for 100 grand.
No. It's hard to imagine that if I'm someone that's had one song that was massive years ago, and that's no one's paying me that money in this country to go and do it.
Dennis Rodman is mates with Kim Jong-un. He goes over there
He's
all
not
the
got
time.
any songs.
He's not got any songs, aye.
They play basketball together.
Aye, you know, aye. No,
cool.
it's a weird one, that, isn't it? Is there 1 or 2 other people that go to North Korea? Or is it just, it's only Rodman I can
Probably.
think of.
Dennis Rodman claims it was a sort of diplomacy thing, but I think he also claims that he didn't know anything about Kim Jong.
Oh, really?
Is it Un?
Aye,
Which one are we on?
Eel.
Un,
now.
Yeah.
Used to be eel.
That's it. I've no other context to add to that.
I'm surprised you've not met Dennis Rodman.
So am I.
He's the sort of guy
The
that...
list. I don't think there's a clear theme to the celebrities I'm going to drop for the next hour.
who else have you had sort of Hoff-esque anecdotes involving, Joe?
All right, this isn't career related. Last week I was on the tube and I wasn't in Westminster, and next to me on the tube was Philip Hammond, the old Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that big spot, see him, stay on the tube for like 5 stops, and then he gets off where I get off. We go up the escalator together, come out the station. So me, former ex-Chancellor of the Exchequer Philip Hammond, who do you think passes at that exact moment?
George Osborne.
Alison Hammond.
No, but they would be good stories.
Joe texted me this at the time.
I texted you
I
straight
think
away.
I also guessed Alison Hammond.
I think you did as well. It was
Hammond and Hammond, that would be. Pitch that to Channel
That's the
4.
great minds of it.
it was Rishi Sunak. But
Fucking hell.
2 ex-chancellors at once passing me.
But was Rishi Sunak just kicking about?
He, like in a car.
Right.
But I saw
When they had
Philip
the window
Hammond
down,
see
blazing
him go
shoes.
past.
He was next to Hasselhoff and then jump in my car.
So that's one of them. That's two of them, isn't it? Who else? Boris Johnson came to my school to do. They had Radio 4 Any Questions when I was in year 11, GCSE year, and he came. I got a photo with him, and he was. It's weird because the thing that was interesting about him is there was like current cabinet minister there at the time and other politicians who would not engage with anyone.
Aye.
Like they didn't come and chat to students. Boris Johnson was just talking about Busted.
This is how he got it to where he doesn't.
Yeah, well, because I wasn't down to earth guy. He's talking about Busted. I didn't want to talk about Busted, but he was talking about. One of them had come out as a Tory that week, and I was like, "How'd you feel about that?" I was making small talk, and then afterwards, he came up to me when the recording was over, and he was like, "I'm really glad you didn't get a question about Busted." But obviously, it's interesting. I've come away from that going like, "Oh, we connected," but I guess he's just like firing conversations out to everyone. Everyone feels like they've had a personal conversation with him.
Yeah.
And it was like he did that to everyone. So everyone had this there's a personability there. The difference is at that point he was just a figure of fun that was on. Like I was interested because I'd seen him on Have I Got News for You?
Yeah.
I'm a comedy fan. I'm like teenage, 15 years old, so not thinking of the
Did
ramifications.
you tell him you're the reason I get started in comedy?
Yeah, Boris Johnson, you started me in comedy. And then a few years later, I remember when he became Prime Minister and then some Daily Mail commentator was talking about how down to earth he was. And they used that exact example. She's Amanda Patel. She's
Did the
economist.
Daily Mail ask my question about Busted?
Yeah. She said...
Your stammer banging on about McFly. No one gives a fuck, man.
No, she said it was... she was like, and proof that he's a man of the people was... He did this Q&A in Slough, of all places, and got mobbed. And I was like, I was there that night. But what she didn't mention is it was an academically selective grammar school that takes 50% of its intake from outside of Slough. There's like a load of posh Windsor parents wanting to meet Boris Johnson.
Aye.
So it's not man of the people. What a deep dive into my life.
Well, it's interesting that you've went down this route because the thing that you're always going on about on Twitter is your
Ice
interaction
blast.
with another former Prime Minister.
That's why you've got me on.
Is it Theresa May?
Theresa May, constituency MP in Maidenhead.
Is that where you're from?
I'm from Slough,
Right.
but the cinema is nicer in Maidenhead, so I went to work at the Odeon. I'd also got fired from Woolworths a few months before, so I was in search of a job.
What for?
What did you do? Steal and pick and mix.
Apparently, I was too slow to restock the Pritt sticks. There's no other reason. I always think there must have been another reason, but that's what the guy said. And the guy, I cannot believe this. I remember at the time just thinking, oh, fucking prick. And then when, like 2 years later, when Woolworths went under, as much as that was devastating for a lot of people, I was like, yes, he's out of a job. He went on to become the CEO. He's the current CEO of Paddy Power.
Wow.
The guy that
The
sacked
guy,
you?
literally the store manager, David Newton,
the
store
fuck's he done
manager
that?
of Slough
You'd have get good odds
Woolworths.
on that, to be fair.
That's crazy. And gigging at the Hullait bar and becoming commissioner at Channel 4.
It's a sliding doors moment.
The
Yeah.
talent in that Woolworths.
Do you think he's at Paddy Power right now at a board meeting? He's like, you'll never fucking guess what happened to that Pritt stick guy.
That's my one biggest regret. Is letting him go.
He was horrible. I liked working at Woolworths. I mean, everyone liked Woolworths because of pick and mix, and I ate so much of it, and everyone was friendly and everyone was nice, and it was an easy, casual job to do as a student. And then Woolworths was kind of sinking, going under, so they brought in like hard-nosed management types, and he was one of them. So he was like, "You get in fucking line, work." I remember swearing at me like, "Give me this big Alan Sugar-esque bollocking." This is the day of the sacking, and I was like, "Don't talk to me like that." And he's like, "If you don't fucking like it, you can leave." And I was like, "Well, I'll have to then." And he marched me to the front door, and then everyone was like, "What are you doing? You can't sack Joe." And he was like, "He's gone." Like that. And I was like, genuinely like, I don't think my speed of replenishing the glue was why that business was failing. And when they got rid of me, it carried on sinking. So, that's Dave Newton, CEO of Paddy Power.
Did Paddy Power advertise on Channel 4 now, Joe? Probably.
I think they do.
I think they do.
Yeah.
But we're not told to not to say bad. I mean, that's factually accurate thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, I like
They're
the
getting
idea
free
that
advertising now.
Well, I like the idea that you'd maybe bump into him at some one of these showbiz parties.
No, I think. What would you do if you were me and you met him at some industry thing? Would you call him out on it, or would you just,
Yeah. Big time.
or would you let him?
Pritt stick his
Talk,
back,
and then
so
at
he
the end
gets
of
stuck to his chair.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think I've got any other Pritt stick memories apart from that one.
No.
I
Not
used to
being
love
able
a
to.
Pritt stick. when I
Still
was-
get Pritt sticks. I think you do, don't you?
Yeah.
You must
I
have.
used to. I was when in school, you would put the lid on and it would make a sort of slit in the Pritt stick. I was one of those guys. Ruined the Pritt stick for everyone. Yeah.
But so Theresa May
Yes.
was the constituency MP. I did a job between Woolworths and Odeon. I just remembered. I worked at Lush,
Right.
the soap shop,
Yeah.
and there was a Christmas temp, and I was the only Christmas temp they didn't keep on after because I've not.
There's a pattern emerging.
There's a pattern, yeah. I've not got a Lush vibe, and I think that's fair.
Did you not put the soaps away quick enough? I don't know.
No, I tell you what I did do was someone comes in. Number one, smile. I don't smile that much. Number two,
I was worried about that when you came and seen my friend's show.
oh, we should talk about that. I was actually laughing that day.
All right. Oh, well, that's...
You couldn't see me, but there was anyway chaos that day. What was I talking about? Lush.
Lush.
They didn't keep me on. I was. Oh yeah. So you smile. You got to be over familiar with people.
They're too friendly and Lush. I don't like
They're
it.
too friendly.
Leave it alone.
And then demonstrating on people. I remember just this woman taking this woman's hand and trying to demonstrate this moisturizer, realizing it was like a bubble bath, and her hand was lathering up. It wouldn't come off, and then she was trying to leave, and I was like, "No, let me rinse it." She didn't buy anything, and they were like, "You're not good at this," so that was fine. Went to work at Odeon Maidenhead. Theresa May's a constituency MP, and that's it. That's the story.
She came in.
Bought Tango Ice Blasts.
Is that for real?
No,
I can't.
I've always wanted to know.
but it was funny because she's diabetic. So, and then there was some legislation that came out that meant one of the knock-on effects on this sugar tax was that the ice blasts became sugar-free. So it gave an extra level to that story that everyone was like, she has fucked herself because now she can't have ice blasts, or she's made it so she can drink ice blasts.
So
But I've made the whole thing up.
So people thought that ice blast was the thing that gave her diabetes that then led to the sugar tax coming in.
Something like that. But you wouldn't believe. It sounds mad, right? It's just me messing around on Twitter in like 2016. The BBC, the day she became Prime Minister, BBC News
Contact.
phoned me up and asked me. They said, we were talking to people that have got like local memories of Theresa May. Would you come on the 6 o'clock news or like? And I remember thinking
You should have went on.
that is an opportunity.
Yeah.
But because we were making Scott Squad for the BBC, I always got a bit jittery about pissing off people at the BBC when you're
Yeah.
working there. And I didn't think, I don't know, I thought maybe there's something in the small print I could get fired. I think that would have been exceptionally funny because
Yeah. That would have been good.
I mean, it's not really libelous, is it? It's not
No.
unless she's really offended by
Three
ice
good
blasts.
sackings in a row, though. Woolworths,
Yeah.
Lush. Scott
I'm
Squad.
due one, aren't I? It might be on this when I realise that Paddy Power's the next sponsor of Stanflet's Flats or whatever.
Anyway, I mean, they are sponsoring us as well, but no, they're not. But not yet.
Oh, so your Fringe show,
Uh-huh.
that was funny.
Thanks.
No, so I've said it in a way that wasn't. It was funny, but do you know about this?
Well,
No.
The night I went,
I forgot you were there that night.
I was at a really
no,
bad
I
time.
was enjoying it, but the audience were, but there was, and this happened a few times at the Fringe, where it's weird. I don't understand what people think they're coming to see.
Yeah.
Where this guy just started answering back a lot, and the crowd weren't with him, and then you kind of then put him in his place, and at the end of the show, he was outside telling everyone he was like he had put you in your place.
That's really cool of that guy.
that's
He
so
was
cool.
really angry, and then what was funny is you basically told him to shut up, and he did, and he'd obviously sat through the rest of the thing being really pissed off, and then outside he was trying to get people on side to complain about you, and people were coming up to him going, "No, I really like that," and he was getting more and more. I remember like this Scottish people going up to the English guy going, no, he was good, shut up. And then you told me that he then...
Yeah, this is.
This
I've
isn't
been
like
doing
the
this in
fucking
stand-up.
news or something.
The Edinburgh Live, the fucking newspaper thing. They got in touch with me, and he'd grassed on me. Them basically go, and they
What a
said
fucking loser.
the journalist. To be fair, I think like you can never tell. This I never really replied to it
Going,
because
do you have any local Mark Jennings memories?
I remember
This
when he
guy's
worked at Woolworths.
this guy's claiming he bought you a tango he's but no, they basically said this guy's got in touch with us and said that you they'd heckled you saying he needed subtitles, and then but what he said to you in response left him feeling verbally abused. And what I wanted to say was, well, I couldn't have needed subtitles that fucking much, but I just left because I just didn't want a
What
fucking...
did you say to him? Do you remember?
I think what I done, I had a guy that was doing a bit of PR for me, and I just gave him his contact, and then I just basically was like, going to just get rid of this because I don't want a story.
But you mean in the gig, what did he say?
I don't know. Do you know what I do remember? Is I was hungover that day, and I had... see, because of the nature of the show, it's a bit more personal stuff like that. See, when I would have people quite early on being evidently maybe would be a problem, I wanted to stamp it out because I was like, this last 20 minutes of the show is going to be really difficult to perform if I've got somebody that's chipping up all the time. So I was probably a wee bit more like
On the defensive.
on the defensive. And so that week I had like 3 gigs that something like that happened, and then
Your birthday one was like that.
that wasn't even that, but I'm not even counting that one. But then the end of the week I done an extra show back in Monkey Barrel 1, and it's probably about half the crowd had just sort of turned up. It was quite late at night on a Saturday, and it was Liam and that were there, and they said it was the worst audience I've ever seen. But I was so disciplined that night because I felt like I didn't want to lose the rag or anything like that again. So I would just was like really killing them with kindness and just trying to get through the shows as much as I could. But I think from doing that, it's never a nice experience when you need to kind of snap
I
at somebody or
I
whatever.
still enjoyed the show, and I think apart from him and whoever he was with, everyone else saw part. You know, in the audience is like they've come to see you. They've not come to listen to him, and he's not funny.
No,
And
no.
I also saw the year before Vittorio, and he was talking about, it's always English people, sorry. He was talking about something about English people not understanding his accent, and then this guy was like, I can't understand you, and he was being dead serious, and he was saying it, and I was like, what? Why at an arts festival with this criticism? I don't know what, you'll know more about Fringe audiences than me, but it just seemed like a really odd, sort of both instances, like middle class English guys coming up. You'd I don't know, expect a bit more awareness of like what it is to perform, or that they're used to going to see shows. But
Also,
I
why would
felt
you
like
buy a
just
ticket for something you don't think you're going to understand?
Yeah.
Well, you
Okay,
wouldn't-
just get used to it. You just get used to it. It happens with the accent thing, and you just need to deal with it. It doesn't happen that often, but it happens often enough.
Well, it's easier to say as an audience member, but I didn't. Yeah, I didn't think it affected the performance, and I don't think it was. Obviously, it'd been annoying, but it wasn't a reason to get annoyed. Like everyone in the room can read those situations.
Yeah. Aye, I know. I know. So I always feel bad when it's people I know come to those type of shows, like where something like that happens, because you're like, oh fuck, like, you know, because like the day before would have been fine and all this kind of stuff. But
As
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
like aware that if people know that there's a commissioner or TV person in the audience, that adds an extra pressure. But I always, I mean, generally, I think with a lot of commissioners I know, a lot of people in the comedy industry see so much comedy and understand the sort of spectrum of experiences that you can have. So it's not like someone has to nail it and have one amazing show and that's the end of your career. That's not how things work. And I always give people, and actually there are so many examples of shows I've seen where on the night, if you were judging on that, it didn't go well, but it's not affected my opinion of someone.
Yeah.
I think often the fact that you're there means you have it. You're never there making a pure discovery. You often go in because there are only so many chances to see people, and you can only see so many shows at the Fringe. You do have to have some knowledge of what you're going to see already.
It's interesting while we're speaking about that then, Joe, because obviously I think it was the year before you were actually on the judging panel for the Fringe, and I
Signed
think,
an NDA.
but because I think a lot of comics like would be interested to hear what that process is like in terms of what goes into being a judge, and it's good to hear. It's sort of like nice to hear that people, you know, can go in with those sort of things of like, we know it might necessarily just be, you know, bad luck that you've turned up on a day where there's a heckler or something like that. But I always feel like you can't help, it's like human nature to an extent. You couldn't help but let that dictate your thinking a wee bit. But these are the sort of things
when
you
the
factor
discussions get to a certain level and you're looking at who might get nominated, multiple people are seeing them, and so they'll end up, all of their shows are getting judged the week before.
Yeah.
So you know, unless everyone's seeing a bad show, in which case it probably shouldn't win. One bad performance isn't affecting it.
Yeah.
A specific example was Laura Racotte. She won Best Newcomer.
Yeah.
And I think she had a terrible gig. I remember 2 days before, but people were still, it just didn't affect it. Because if you'd seen that show 2 or 3 times, you knew what it was. And actually it was quite endearing, I think, to see. And that's what everyone's well versed in how performances go. They don't all go this, they're not all perfect. Yeah, it didn't affect, sorry, I'm just repeating what I said, but it didn't affect.
Yeah.
If you can also tell if someone, the first part of the show goes really well and then something goes wrong, you sort of go, well, that was really good and I will give it a second chance.
How many shows did you watch that year?
I lost count at about 86.
Wow.
Oh, I say about, that's
I don't want to be
specifically
the
when I lost
86
count.
show
I
someone's-
think you might have been.
How
so
many a day is that? Is that like
there were days where there
6 or
was 8 a
something?
day,
8.
some of them. And I did a bit more because you come up the second week and start cramming them in. It was, I mean, generally, because people have been scouted at that, there's a whole process that I don't really know about, like in detail, where there are scouts that go out and see stuff. And I think even then, they're looking at multiple people saying something's good or something's not good enough before making that decision and deciding who's going to see what. So there is, I mean, it's as fair as like creative competition is absurd, really, because there are so many good shows. There were so many good shows that just didn't get anywhere near nomination for various reasons. And obviously people do care about that. I understand that. And I'm not a spokesman for the competition, but I felt as fair as that process could be, whilst caveating that with like, isn't the whole thing a bit mad?
Yeah.
To get, what was funny, I remember talking to you and you instantly, I was like, I'm coming to see your show, and you just went, oh, I'm not an award act, which I know you didn't win the award, but like that dismissiveness of your own performance seems crazy to me.
Well, I would say it's not a dismissiveness of my performance. It's just an awareness, I think, of what you the lay of the land, I think, and what I do versus what is the sort of thing that
would win.
And I'm just doing it. I'm just doing a different thing. See, when you are a judge, then, because like, do you having actually done that process? Have you come out thinking it's more cynical than you thought before, or is it more fair then?
It's difficult because I think obviously they change the panel every year, so I imagine every year is a completely different process. So I've only got insight on what it was the year that I did it, and I felt that the process was fair and there were really open, honest discussions. I'm sure that happens all the time, but I just know that we entered into the whole thing in good faith and did the best. Like, sounds mad for a comedy award, but it was, for me as a comedy person, I'm not necessarily, yes, you can have a good story and you can have an emotional arc, but if you're not getting laughs constantly, for me that's not a comedy.
Yeah.
So, and I just took that attitude into discussions. The winner was Sam Campbell, and I'm not saying everyone loved Sam. It didn't need someone to fight for that type of show, but I was really happy that year to be part of a panel that decided that was a show that was going to get awarded, because I had such a fun time watching him multiple times, and every time it was a bit different, and that's what comedy should be, funny.
Yeah. And it was a funny show, and that's the one.
And people's perceptions, I'm not speaking of any specific winner, it's all subjective, but I know that a lot of comedians' perceptions is that a certain type of thing wins.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, why you didn't think you were an award act.
So I'm not that funny. That's a joke. No. No, well, yeah,
Yeah,
but that,
'cause-
I mean, generally speaking, well, it's like awards bait in the Oscars, isn't it? Basically, it's like the Dead
Yeah.
Parent Show is the fucking Holocaust movie of the Fringe.
Goodwill Hunting, if you will. That sort of
But do you know what I
Do
mean?
you like Good Will Hunting?
shite.
We were chatting this before. Mark just watched it. He said it was good.
Watched it recently. I thought I liked it.
Sorry, what a weird side. No one knows
but
that we were
but
talking about that on the way here.
No, but that is it. It's like, yeah, it's Oscars, but it's like, yeah, sometimes, you know, Tarantino or Scorsese will win the Oscar, but a lot of time it'll be
Often Oscar films are often films that are about filmmakers or about actors, which I generally don't enjoy. I don't want to watch stuff that's about the industry, but it does seem to be popular.
That's what the Academy likes. Though.
Yeah.
yeah.
So, in answer to your question, it's fair. It's completely fair.
But you're not getting these nefarious calls behind the scenes like the rest of the mob, Joe.
Do you ever get people like trying to come up like
Kill me?
bribe you or whatever for like, when you were a judge,
50 grand from a dictator.
or like, you know, buying you some drinks and try and sweeten the deal?
Agents and all that kind of stuff. Does that
I
go
mean,
on?
no, I don't think so.
Not that you
Having
would
a
accept-
drink
Yours?
is not appealing. Like it's the whole industry is drinks events
Yeah.
and things like that. So having a drink with someone, being bought a drink, isn't an inducement to do anything.
No.
I'll take the drink and not vote for you. Sorry, that's not an admission. That's a joke.
But you don't get anyone sort of chancing their luck, and not that you would take the bribe, but like
No, it's not. No, people chance their luck at trying to get intel on what you're thinking. So not necessarily to persuade you. Obviously, I think it's a natural thing of agents are, in any context that you meet them, are going to be being positive about their clients. But if you're used, particularly if you're in that situation as a TV commissioner, you're used to talking to people and sort of separating the thing that you're being told from a proper assessment of what is in front of you.
Yeah. And you were saying about, like, obviously, you don't, like, you can take into consideration if somebody has a bad gig. Obviously, when people get nominated, it's in that last week, and then you as the judges would go and see them all again. But obviously, sometimes when you get nominated, the nature of the crowd changes, because suddenly a lot of people hear, oh, this person's been nominated, I'll go and see it. And then that can sometimes mean that the shows aren't as good.
And also creating pressure is at that point, because I say that people are constantly watching the same acts, but at that point when you're getting towards the final decisions, you are going en masse as judges in some cases.
Yeah.
And I remember going to see someone's show, and like it was the two back rows were judges, and the row in front was BBC commissioners, and there were like Channel 4 colleagues in there as well, and other agents. And at one
Need
point
some
you're like,
normal
where is the
people.
audience? Particularly if you're in a small room and someone's got a bit of buzz and there's only 40 seats. And the laughs aren't as intense as they were. I enjoyed the first week of the Fringe more than anything else, because it just felt that like nothing has been infected by pressure. Whereas at the end, certainly you guys will know it from performing. I don't know what that would be like, but yeah, I thought there was a tangible pressure that the whole thing has created, and I felt bad about that.
Yeah.
But you've just got to sort of conduct yourself in a, not make it about you as a judge or an industry person, and be respectful and carry on laughing and look at things in the context of that pressure. And because there's also people I think that feel deflated that they've not been nominated at that point, because maybe they're expecting it, or I think people were being, it's not, people have been told throughout the Fringe that it's their year and then it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That, I think, in some ways, you tell that story, it sounds a bit pathetic, but I can totally imagine in the heat of like doing 30 shows in a row, probably would get to you, and that's reasonable.
Last thing I'll say before moving on for this is I know somebody who's been on a judging panel for a different festival, and they've said, well, the thing is that everybody kind of comes in with their own agenda to an extent, and I suppose there'll be different people who vouch for different folk. And obviously, last year I think the thing was there was a few folk that were Scottish based that thought they could have maybe been in there shouting, and it ended up nobody that's based here got nominated. And I think there's maybe a certain perception that that's maybe a bit of a blind spot in terms of that type of thing. And I was just wondering what your thoughts were on that kind of thing, people coming in with their own agendas. And also, I suppose people think maybe it's a bit of a kind of London-centric thing still, and you could maybe just, almost pre-program a lot of the people who will get nominated or something.
What do you think the agenda would be?
Well, I think that each person who's maybe on the panel comes in with their own biases, their own favourites already, which is just perfectly natural for
They've
any
already seen them in
for any
London,
type of
but
thing. They've
they've
already
not
seen them. They've got
Scottish
relationships with them, whatever. But I just think I suppose more it's like I think there's certainly a perception, whether or not it's true, about like, you know, people that are maybe obviously from our talking point Scottish based or just generally not London based, maybe getting overlooked slightly.
Do you think? I mean, you're right. You're right in terms of nominations haven't followed, but I definitely feel like there's a higher profile of Scottish comedy at the moment.
I think it's. I definitely would say that feels like the case as well. But you just, I suppose, and again, this is something that I had no personal stake in, but I guess that's where the disappointment comes in, because people then get their hopes up for that, thinking, then that will translate into a nomination for somebody, and then it doesn't happen, and you kind of go, same old, same old.
I didn't perceive of any like anti. I'm not saying you're saying this is explicitly this, but there wasn't.
I think it's more of an unconscious thing though as well. It's like it's just not even
that you've been
a consideration.
To loads, so they're already in your mind.
But what I and it's in commissioning right now. I bring a perspective on the Scottish industry that other people don't, and my whole thing is I've just got to remember that. And it's part of the reason I was employed, is I've come in and talk about a load of acts that they maybe at the time hadn't engaged with, and then someone's bringing a totally different perspective. And from Channel 4 wanting alternative things, that's a positive thing. So in all that work, have just got to, like, yes, there are biases, but I think a lot of mine are positive, and it's just staying true to that. I definitely had an agenda in that thing, and that, like I said, was going for stuff that was just out and out trying to be funny, not trying to win an award. And then also, you know, I never said you need to go and everyone should be voting for this act, but the fairness was in making sure if you spotted that someone hadn't been seen as much as they should, sorry, I don't know why I'm looking at you when I said that, Steve. Just you can't tell everyone to go and vote for one person, but you can make sure that everyone has, or you can put pressure and make sure that everyone's seen that person. So I mean, I think it absolutely is open to different people's biases, and often that is negative. But that's me. That's speculating on other years. I didn't see that in my own personal work.
Sure.
I'm just worried that one of the bias things I admitted to was negative. Did I like inadvertently say?
No, I
I've got
don't
my
think
own
so.
bias?
No. It's just a personal taste thing. It comes down to effectively as well, isn't it?
And I think what you were saying is like positive bias, like people who haven't really been are in the mainstream a lot, and you're trying to push them a wee bit more, which is good.
I definitely thought, like, because Josh Pugh was nominated that year, he seemed really surprised at it. Like, he was like you. He's like, didn't think he was an award act or whatever, and it was just undeniable that he was entitled to a nomination. Like,
it's just so funny.
When you have conversations as part of the panel with other panelists, and everyone's going, I laugh non-stop, and it's like, no, the sentence ends at I laugh non-stop. That's it.
That's good enough.
And it was really good that he was on the nominations. I think I'm doing PR for the festival now, but I think the shortlists were good.
Yeah.
And I was happy to see a lot of my taste reflected in it.
Well, let's sort of take a wee segue into the commissioning side of things, which you kind of touched on there. Steve and Stuart have got a lot more experience in this kind of
By the
world.
way, can I just say, when I said to Channel 4 I'm going to go on this podcast, they went, they'll probably just only talk to you about Scott Squad, so that's fine.
Well, I thought, should we go to Scott Squad? But I think just because we're kind of in a similar realm here, like, so what I was going to ask was just like, so you are a commissioner for Channel 4, and for somebody like maybe that's interested in writing, would like to pitch stuff to telly or whatever, how does the process work? And because in this day and age, like maybe people feel, there's no point in trying because they're never going to read it, or, you know, how would somebody that's maybe an emerging talent, say, go about trying to get something pitched on Channel 4?
You're talking about yourself in third person.
Nah, I don't even bother. There's no point. I'm not reading it.
I'm not a commissioning kind of act.
I'm not a commissioning kind of act.
It's all about who you know.
I know, I'm just waiting for one of these cunts fucking scripts to get commissioned. Hopefully you'll cast me in it.
We'll chuck you apart, but
I don't know. I mean, it's such a big question. There are so many routes in.
Is it like a lot of who you know rather than? I mean, obviously it's down to talent, but is there the way into?
Like, I don't not necessarily in like who you know in commissioning. But
Production
the whole
companies,
industry is on who, and that's not a good thing. But the whole you have like such an advantage when you know everyone. Oh, yeah, completely.
Who did you know when you got Scott Squad made though?
I didn't know anyone, but that's so the Channel 4 production trainee scheme is aiming to put people in TV in an entry level position that don't have any of those contacts, don't come from the backgrounds where people are normally from, and a working class background. So that has worked. That's to kind of get you to the position that other people might start in. So I didn't know anyone, but obviously I really quickly got those connections. And then, I know you, and some people would say we have a close relationship, and that's Stuart using his. And by the way, I'll say that Stuart does not have a series as of yet on Channel 4, but lots of people would say that is an access problem, that like I'm only talking to you about something. But I just think if the reason you have that relationship with someone is purely through comedy in the industry, like we don't have any other social connection, that's a positive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like we went to school together.
Yeah,
Worked
you
together.
built up
If you gave a series to the guy who now runs Paddy Power, I think there might be a few questions
A lot
asked.
of product
This
placement.
would be a really good series. The stories he's got. Maybe I'll write with him. No, so I get with everything, like, and with the panel I was just talking about, from my perspective, you've just got to be aware of your biases or where you're giving access to people that other people might not get it. So it's making sure as a commissioner that we see as many things as possible. So we're at the Glasgow Comedy Festival, we're going to see stuff. Up at the Fringe, really important. Actually, I'd kind of forget awards. It's important that you're being seen by everyone. So we're making sure that we come up to the Fringe and I'm seeing local acts, and like, what's the point of being in Scotland and not seeing any Scottish people?
Yeah.
So give me a medal. It's essentially, I find myself constantly justifying
Scottish champion.
yeah, doing my own PR, how good I am at my job, watching comedians. I haven't directly answered any of those questions.
Would you say that coming up to the Fringe and stuff like that, is that still as important as it was, say, 20 years ago? Because nowadays people might think that having an online following and putting out content and stuff is more important.
Do you need that to get something on the telly? Or do they look at the followers and all that kind of stuff?
No. It helps if you've got, like, if you've written something that's really good, or there's a really clear argument for there to be a sitcom, and you also have that following, or you have some sort of, you can see that there's a like groundswell of support for someone, that can help. It's not a cynical thing of we going, oh, you must have this many followers. It's another way of showing that there is something beyond what you're presenting, that this might have a wider reach, but it's not essential. And the Fringe thing, I think from an individual act point of view, I don't think it's important. Like, I'm not going to judge someone if then I can't go and see their show in August in Scotland. It doesn't matter. It's useful as from a commissioning perspective, and I think it always will be, that, like, for example, right now I'm up in Glasgow for the comedy festival, and there's only a few shows a night. I can't see that much, but in a Fringe day, I can see 8 shows. So from a practical perspective, literally just a practical perspective of cramming in as much comedy as possible, the Fringe is always going to be number one for doing that, and will always be that thing. But it's not the only thing. And there's loads of, I don't know, I've got a completely open mind. And often it's what will happen is I'll read a script before I've seen someone, and I go, oh, right, I should actually go and see their show now. So it's not always a case of, it rarely is a case of you going to see a stand-up and go, that's the guy, that's the person. You know, there's just a lot going on around any one person's career that gives a basis on which to make a judgment.
Is it mostly like comedians you're reading scripts from? Because you're saying that you'll read their script and then go and see their show, or what happens if it's just a writer?
No,
and they
I
have a show?
don't. No, loads of our biggest shows are writers only. Dairy Girls, she's not a comedian. It does tend to be more writers, and getting the balance. I think when I started in the industry, in like 2010, it felt like there was a massive pressure on comedians to be writer performers, and people only assessing comedy through like, what do you bring on stage, and trying to transfer a big act to screen. And no, I mean, not everyone can do that. even me personally as a producer, I wasn't excelling as a stand-up comedian, but I think I definitely brought something as a behind camera person or a non-stagey person, although I did cast myself in Scott Squad as a narrator. But sorry, the original question. So writer only, and the Windsors that we do, that's a writer only. It's Bert Tyler Moore. There are loads of really good writers only. We're not explicitly looking for writer performers. I think the great thing now, I think it's like mutually beneficial now that one really positive thing, like we're on this podcast, it doesn't exist on TV. Yes, we're talking about TV.
Not yet.
Yes, at
Open
the
to
end, that's the last 10 minutes of you pitching it. And maybe like, I just need to go over there. But the fact that as comedians, you can exist in your own ecosystem and you can promote, and the stand-up is an end of itself. I think it's negative for TV people to view comedy as just live comedy as a pipeline to television. It's brilliant that it exists on its own. Really why I enjoyed doing the Edinburgh Comedy Awards panel was just having the freedom of just judging something based on how did that hour go in the room, not is this going to make a very good television program. Judged most things, if you judge it in that context, it's not going to happen because we've only got a few slots every year. It's like actually statistically like winning the lottery.
Yeah.
So, and actually, paradoxically now, the fact that there are more opportunities for people like you guys to perform and to find an audience without television, then actually makes the job easier for me now because I've got a wider range of people to look at and assess. So that's the long answer. Short answer, we like writers and performers. We like just writers. There are other creators. I just think the whole ecosystem in media it's fractured and there's so much of it now, and that's good. And I often see people, you have people that have like big comedy podcasts moan about commissioners and how we view comedy, and I'm kind of like, no, I agree with you. That's really good. This doesn't have to be on television.
It's funny you mentioned that about the winning the lottery thing, because I think that's one of the things that's always intimidating.
I don't want to get quoted on that.
No, but I know what you mean though, because I mean, for me, I've always found it a bit intimidating that, like, you know, how it seems like so out with your control it would be to just write a script and then the chances of it getting made versus being able to like do stand up and you feel like you've got more autonomy over that. You can build an audience, do stuff online, that type of thing. Because I'd love to sit and spend, you know, a couple of months writing a script and see whatever, but I kind of go, well, I don't know if I'd be good at that. And then secondly, I don't know even if I wrote something great, what the chances it ever gets made.
It's a lot of effort for something that might not.
Don't ever pitch to a commissioner saying, I don't know if I'd be good at that. Yeah, it is a lot of effort. Sorry, I missed the question. I cut you off on the question bit.
No, I guess it's just like a thing of like, because you brought up development hell earlier, and I guess for you, when you've got something that you're like, oh great, I think this is something really cool here, how is the process still frustrating for you to try and get things made even in your position?
I've only commissioned at Channel 4, so I can only speak about that. No, I've never... So I've been there 3 years. We have not taken anything as a team, as a comedy team. So Charlie Perkins, the head of comedy, and the rest of the team. In my experience, as of yet, we have not taken something that we've decided we want to make and had people above say no. So entirely supportive in, you have robust conversations, but ultimately there's a lot of support. So, and that's really liberating.
Yeah.
But it does put the pressure on you, making sure you're presenting the right things or things that are good, which is a good thing. But I've certainly, I feel like when it's a really easy case to make, it doesn't feel like work. There have been cases where you think you're ready for like a battle. That's what you imagine, and you say we should recommission this, and everyone goes, yeah, and that's a good TV show that it's obvious. The harder things are picking what you're going to fight for. But so far, I've found it an incredibly creative thing. I've not felt there's any compromise on, and commissioning shouldn't just be about the commissioner's taste. But I don't feel like I've had any compromise on what my taste is yet, and what has made it to screen. Like, really happy with everything I've been doing in that role.
And if we can talk about it, you've commissioned our very own Stevie B.
Oh yeah, so that's a good case study. Is this you just finding out
Channel
that
4 playground?
a Channel 4 playground?
Not a pilot, but it's a
5-minute
playground.
show.
So can you explain
how much money you're getting.
No,
Full breakdown.
The-
50 grand from a dictator.
the process of so it goes playground, blap, pilot. Is
Yeah.
that?
So I think you all know what blaps are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone seems to know, and they've got a reputation in the industry now. And those were the Channel 4 short form things, and sometimes they'd develop further into series. Stathless Flats was, Jamie Dimitri had blaps. We Are Lady Parts was a blap, and there are a few other examples. But
Game face.
yeah, more and more, Game Face, more and more those shorts came with a pressure because everyone's now seeing that as it
pilot.
remains like a pilot route and a route to getting something made. And there's a lot of things when you read it, you go, right, maybe that's blap territory. But more and more, people are seeing them as pilots, and it's adding an extra pressure. And I think the original spirit of blaps was to try short form things that are experimental and fun and maybe sketchy, or just something that it's not as big a risk because you're not spending a huge tariff on it, but you're doing something that does allow people to be really creative. So that's why we've created Playgrounds, which is a short form 5-minute strand for writer performers, and
Stream on Channel 4.
stream on Channel 4
Or +1.
or plus no or plus, what was the old gag anyway? So I think I was trying to have so many conversations about, I can't remember the genesis of I know that I went to see your Fringe show and really enjoyed it, and a couple of other commissioners happened to see it and really enjoyed it, and I felt like it was a big progression in what you'd done previously of just doing like your normal stand-up act to having the characters and sort of
Bit of a story, bit of a narrative.
also sending up that fringy thing of a narrative. It was good.
I thought it was very clever.
Very clever. And that's why you've got 5 minutes with Channel 4. But also, it's not just, and this is probably kind of boring for this forum, but a lot of our job is, we're talking about it in talent terms, but we've also got to develop the production community and make sure that we're working with new directors and new producers.
Aye.
So it just like from those conversations, talking to you, it emerged that there was an idea that you could do, and that Niamh McKeown's a director, would be a good director, and there's a producer that hasn't produced stuff for Channel 4 before. It was just a good team, a good way of, on a 5-minute short, of testing out a load of people in their first thing for Channel 4. I mean, that's it. I'm like really over explaining it, but it's just we're commissioning 5 minutes from funny people. That's it.
Aye.
And it's up to you to say whether you felt that no pressure. There was a creative freedom.
Yeah.
But I don't think we put. It was like, what's the idea that you want to do? Looked at a few scripts and went, either of those is good. That one's probably the best.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was. I think that was the whole thing. That it was hands off from you guys, and it was like, do whatever you want, and it was like that. You essentially said, send us like a couple of ideas, and then I sent you them, and you're like, choose any of them, and I was like, well, that you don't get that ever when you're trying to develop something. It's like
Wait till you do the series.
so it's like usually really
Development hell.
micromanaged though, innit?
But what we are saying is like, and we've, I think you and the producer are aware of it, that that is not a pilot for like the big thing. That's a cool comedy thing that's going to exist, and sure, there'll be a creative relationship afterwards, and you will probably pitch stuff, but that's just 5 minutes that doesn't have any pressure on it, because so many people are trying to set up characters for a series. Really difficult in that time.
And even when like you specifically said before, you were like, "This is not to develop for a pilot or a
This
series."
is
or
comic
anything.
levels of me distancing myself.
Yeah, but like
from a pitch.
even when you get that, and then you hear that sometimes with various different things, and then the producer will then go, right, yeah, but like let's try and make this a mini pilot anyway. That I know they've said this isn't going to be for a pilot, but let's just do it anyway.
Yeah.
They've not asked for that, just to make it as funny as possible, you know.
Yeah.
Aye. And I guess
I'm not saying that Ewan was saying that, by the way. This is like other things with other things.
and I think
Name and shame them. BBC,
Could be the
Netflix.
BBC. Not Netflix, no. Not yet.
because
They will poach you from Channel 4
That's fine.
to do some really strict, like, I don't know. Have you got a harrowing story? That will be your...
Not yet, but they'll do some sort of period piece or something, surely. They like
You
doing
and the
that.
lunatic.
The co-op
asylum.
years. You worked in the co-op.
Yeah. 9 years.
That's a long time.
Too long. Yeah.
I only did 2 years at Woolworths.
I served.
He was quick at putting the glue out,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I was really quick.
You're too quick though, because you never got to the Paddy Power level. If you're too good at that part of the job, they'll keep you.
I had a couple of celebrities as well in the co-op.
Well.
Mikey from Big Brother,
yeah.
blind guy. Remember him? And what's the the sport guy in Clyde one?
Alan
Hugh
Brazil.
Evans.
Hugh Evans.
Yeah, he lived like right next to.
That's my two big
Anyway.
celebs.
We should talk about Scott Squad, Joe. I think.
Yeah. Was there anything else Channel 4? I'm trying to think messaging.
I served a bit potato to Gerard from Peep Show. So that ties it all
Did
together.
you?
Yeah,
I thought he was dead.
yeah. Tube up the nose, obviously.
Oh, I had to. Did this come up yesterday? And,
Yeah.
and we're in the edit suite watching his Channel 4 Playground streaming on Channel 4, and I just came up. I made a reference to Jacket Potato, and then I realised that half the room had no idea what I was talking about. But like
This was my life, Joe.
you and the producer, maybe Neve. I don't even think Neve knew, the director.
What, a jacket potato is?
No, about you working at the
Working.
potato
right,
shed.
Yeah, okay.
I just said potatoes. Someone said potatoes, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, like Stuart in the potato shed." They were like, "What are you talking about?"
Well, I've met a lot of
Sounds
people
like a-
since that place is gone, you know.
So it's the name of a band. Stuart and the Potatoes.
Suddenly explaining to the head of comedy at Channel 4, I was like, "There was a potato shed manned by
Don't try and make
Stuart,
logic out of it, 'cause it doesn't make sense.
and they never had any potatoes. And the business was so bad, it no longer is a food business; it's a tourist information booth."
It's not even a commercial space anymore.
Is that's a form of nepotism? I guess we bonded over. I just think that's a good form of nepotism. Is me talking to someone that serves potatoes for a living to the point.
This can't do nothing for my career.
Was that after you'd been cast in Scott Squad?
Yeah,
Or-
that overlapped. You get recognised, like you're on the telly, and also I'm selling you a bit of potato.
That's so funny. I guess it would have been the same guys that came in to help save Woolworths that were running the potato shed at that point.
drive it in the ground. Yeah.
What? Who? I suppose you don't want to talk about them. Who owned that?
It was these two kind of posh guys called Guthrie and Rory, and I think it was owned by one of their dads, because whenever I got paid, it was actually like a London-based property company that was paying me. So I think it was kind of like, give him his own little business. I think it was that kind of thing, like a playground for them.
It's now just a ticket information booth at
Yeah,
Glasgow
that's it,
Central,
yeah.
that place.
Do you reckon they get anyone coming for potatoes?
I mean, that'd be amazing, because people did always come in looking for information from me. So.
It's not even a shed. Why was it called
No,
a potato
literally
shed?
no part of it makes sense.
Anyway, let's talk about Scott Squad.
But that was the Scott Squad era. That was, I think, maybe the first series that Stuart was in, and served me potatoes
Yeah.
during.
Is that how you were first aware of him? No.
He just thought the way I did it was really
It's
good.
tot-
and
it's totty
that's how I got it.
nepotism.
Yeah.
Is
You got a
it?
really open mind, Joey. Like, I'm always looking for people. Oh, there's this guy.
I mean, we
who's
saw a
just
lot of people on that show.
So you guys need to go check this guy at the potato shed out. What are you talking about? Yeah, let's talk about Scott Squad.
The audition process was always good for Scott Squad, though. I liked the improv games. I can't remember if I've ever told you this, but when I done my audition, the sort of games and stuff, there was a comedian who kept doing puns every time, and it just ruined the whole flow. It was like setting a fish shop, and he'd go, "Looks like someone's been battered in here," and it'd be like, "Fucking hell, shut up."
Leave that. Leave that. Aye.
Completely lost my train of thought. Scott
Audition
Squad.
process.
Audition process. What about it?
Yeah, no,
It's
just,
just because it's improvised. It's not like a lot of other.
Yeah, so it's Scott Squad semi-improvised, and that like the genesis of the idea of I'm a huge Curb fan, and it just seemed like a fun way of getting new talent in, and because you'd have an outline method, and asking comedians who are quite fast to improv and actors to improvise around that. It was just an appealing thing. I think it was an appealing thing to the BBC because it allowed us to be more inclusive with how you're casting.
Yeah.
And we had, I think, disability representation on the series is higher than the average was on BBC Scotland sitcoms at that point, because if you suddenly, and class representation and everything, if you suddenly remove loads of the barriers of, like, you know, there's a certain type of person often that knows how to come in and game an audition, how to do well in it. But if you're just saying, be funny around this criteria, it's suddenly really liberating for people, and you end up like creating things for them specifically. So the audition process was always fun. But it's funny you talk about people using puns, because there are loads. It's a common thing where people would, you've probably seen it loads, but where people are kind of funny in the room, but you go, they have just written that, and actually what you're testing, and often because sometimes someone would say and would accuse you of, they're like, oh, I came in and auditioned as a burglar, and then now there's a burglar in this TV show about police, and you're like, of course there is. We're not, or like there was a budget to get material from other people, so there's no reason why anyone would steal an idea. The whole process is just to really see how you think on your feet, whether you are making us laugh in the room, but also whether when you play it back on camera, it continues to make you laugh, because everything, if you think someone spontaneously come up with it on the spot, it's quite funny, but actually that needs to be held to a higher standard if you're putting it on TV, because the audience don't necessarily, they're not watching it thinking that people have just improvised. So
there's always things that were really funny on the day, but then look shit on telly. And
yeah,
vice versa.
and let's talk about your audition. Do you remember your
Rab, you didn't even like my audition.
I didn't like
the one in the room with me and Rab.
No, not that one. The workshop. So we would do. You would do a 1-on-1 or a 2-on-1 audition where myself and the producer or the director would basically interview you. We'd say you come in and you're a criminal, and we've just arrested you, or you're just being questioned, and you just do a sort of 20-minute improv from there. And essentially that's us playing detectives or colleagues, and you would just have a conversation around that. And if someone can hold their own and make you laugh for 20 minutes in an audition, that's pretty good, and they're probably going to be good on the day. But with an extra layer of security, then you then have a workshop audition where you put those people that were all really good in the 1-on-1 auditions into a workshop, and you do loads of improv games. That's it, really. And but Stuart's, I remember dismissing your workshop one, so you were good enough in the. Did you audition for me in the first bit? I don't remember.
I think it was me, you, and Rab in the room.
Well, you to be invited back, you would have been good enough. You'd have impressed on the day, so that's wrong if you thought that we didn't like it, and you're in the show, so that's not true. Yeah, you did well, okay. That's why you're in it all.
I ended up taking the fucking auditions.
Yeah, I should give the auditions.
Yeah, I'll be in that scene.
I'm earning less. So you would have done well in that audition, and then the workshops. I can't remember why. I wasn't like overly critical or dismissive, but I don't think I was. I didn't find your performance in the room that memorable. I remember going through the list afterwards, and sort of crossing you off. And then Chris Grady, who was also a story producer on Scott Squad, watched back the tapes, and he said, "Oh no, this guy's really good on the tape." And actually, I think what would have happened is there would have been some people in the room that were.
There were so many noisy cunts.
Everyone's trying to be noisy. Everyone's trying to be the funny person. And obviously everyone's funny on a sitcom or should be funny in their own way. But everyone's trying to be Grado. Everyone's trying to be that really loud person and trying to grab your attention. But we're kind of watching. A bigger test is actually who is listening in the room and who is constructing something from that, rather than just saying the first mad thing that comes to the head. So, but in the room, it was really hard. It was really hard to spot Stuart in the room, but it was on the watch back that the audition.
So only this podcast.
And the potato shed. That's what I do in any room. It's not. I can't turn off.
It's only now the potato shed's over that we're realising how good it was.
Reappraising it. Yeah.
So that was the audition process, and. Yeah, it meant that like people like Chris Toll, who played Tam Spraggins, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, Shagger.
Yeah.
Am I a Shagger? Yes, that.
Great name.
Great name.
There's a podcast with Grado now.
Yes.
Yeah, so people like Chris, I just don't think would have ended up in a BBC Scotland sitcom were it not for a flexible auditioning process. It's just sort of just go and do what you're going to do. And that was, again, when I'm saying the character doesn't matter, it didn't really matter. What mattered from his auditions was that he kept saying Shagger over and over again. Every single time he said it, it was funny. And he was just really aggressive. And then it's like, right, let's put him into a situation. And it just, that was a perfect thing. And I did not write any of that scene. So I'm happy to say I'm not bragging about how good something I did was. Someone else came up with that story. And it turned out to be the funniest thing in Scott Squad ever.
It's a good way of doing it. Those auditions, it's fun.
I would like. I think there's been right. I'll say this now, and we get pitched it loads at Channel 4. But I really like. It works with Curb that you have a show that's using that improv method, and it works with Scott Squad, and there are other shows. I think that worked. The best bits of Scott Squad and improvising would work without the framework of a documentary. Everyone's got the subsequent spin-offs and whatnot around that show have been to try and make it documentary feeling, but I think more people should embrace that method. I think the reason why Scott Squad worked is because we overshot and because there was a flexibility in it. You're allowed to experiment more, and often if people have got a scripted thing, you've got to rigidly stick to the jokes, and then if you're shooting on day one and it's not funny and you've got the whole shoot planned, you've still got to kind of shoot that. So anything that allows people to read and adjust the process as they're going is a positive thing, and maybe that's more. There should be more improvisation in television, and now everyone's going to be like, "Well, you fucking do it then."
It kind of comes back to what you're saying about Sam Campbell. You know, it's the same show, but it's slightly different every day, and that spontaneity is part of it, and that's what keeps things, living and breathing in it.
Yeah, I heard he did in Glasgow. He did a load of material on the Squinty Bridge.
Yeah,
He talked about us. And he said that next was material for Raymond Mearns.
Wow, what did he say about the Squinty Bridge?
He just says, I'm going to go down to the Squinty. He just kept referencing it when he was on here and stuff like that. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, by the way, I think we might need to wrap up in a wee second.
I don't think we've done.
Going.
I thought an hour on Scott Squad, a further hour.
Have you got into the plug? Just Channel 4, basically.
Yeah, the concept of Channel 4. A lot of the things that you're paying for paying Netflix to watch.
Delete.
Peep Show, Friday Night Dinner.
Great stuff.
Get
Class.
it for free on Channel 4. It's got really
With
angry.
adverts for Paddy Power.
But also, if you pay,
you stay there for 6 minutes of Paddy Power.
if you pay for the version
If I
of
hear
Channel
Domino
4,
Hoo again, I'm going to fucking kill someone, I swear to God.
pay for the ad-free version. It is still half the price of the Netflix subscription.
And it'll soon include some Stephen Buchanan.
And there are some dramas.
I just watched Married at First Sight Australia.
It's good.
The first date, Scotty.
4 in a bed, is
absolutely
that
love it.
Channel 4?
First
You better
date's
Big
believe
fan
great.
of that. Big fan of that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you knew because I didn't.
It's the thinking man's come down with me, I'll say.
Well, anyway, Joe, thank you very much for joining us. Mate.
Thanks
It's
for
been
having
good
me.
chat
Thank you
again.
so much.
I'm laughing.
As ever, please remember to like and subscribe on YouTube, give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and you can follow us at SomewherePod on Instagram, TikTok and Twitter, and send any questions you've got to the email address, which is somewherepod@gmail.com. Thanks a lot for tuning in, guys, and I'll speak to you very soon.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Cheers.
Joe.